Hello again, this is Marxist, and this is episode 3 of my rough guide to Metalworks. I'll be talking about pushing last in this video, and I'll be upfront with you here and say I'm not going to have a lot of videos in here, if at all, because I feel like my video discussion bits have been done enough in other episode 3s of my series on 5CP maps. So, if any of the things that I talk about in the coming video here seem a little foggy to you, any of those other videos will have the answer to your question most likely. I'm going to try to be as pictorial and expressive as possible otherwise, just so that there's no real confusion. But if you want to see video examples, for instance, of what an off class would do exactly, those will be in the other guide videos, but I don't feel the need to keep adding the same content in over and over and over again. So to get down to business, we'll talk about holding before you push. You may not need to hold before you push, but in the event that you do, it's helpful to know. There are 3 basic hold spots on this map, and 2 of them are in lobby. The first one that most teams do is just chilling out here on the left side. So if you walk into the lobby from second, aimed at your enemy's last, standing over here is med, basically where the camera is a pretty safe spot in most cases, maybe a little closer. The main thing is that you don't open yourself up to a lot of sniper angles, and standing clear against the right side wall opens up a lot of space, but can work because nobody can see you then. So this general area is sort of where you want to set up your medic demo pocket, and then everybody else can kind of just hold the door by the boxes, so if anybody tries to open the shutter for a sniper or whatever, or if they try to peek in from the right side and run behind you, you can see it and take care of it. The other spot is over here on the right, and this one's pretty safe and is good if you intend to be a team that pushes the right a lot of the time on this map, because you basically have everything covered here. It's a little bit easier to hold as well, because they can run around all they want to behind you. You're going to have a shutter door to protect you, basically, and a ramp to shoot down on them if they do end up doing something really weird and trying to get behind you. So this spot's nice, and also it can keep the medic pretty safe. The only thing to watch out for is if they run some kind of weird spy play or something, the spy can sometimes get up the ramp a little easily on you, but that's really, really rare. So just turn around every now and again, decent medic play, and that'll be okay. This one I prefer, personally, but we still do the other one just because it's sort of expedient. You just got done capping the point. It's easiest just to set up on the left. Then move everybody over to the right and risk crossing a sniper sight line or something while you move your team from the left to the right. The third option, which I'm not going to show, is standing outside of the lobby and just leaving it all together. And you'd want to do that if you're a couple people down and you're afraid that they might push on you. That'd come up in a situation where like a couple people died on second capping it, and they have Uber, and you don't want to get really close to them, because it is really easy to get bogged down in a fight in this lobby area, because it's kind of twisty and turny, so things can get out of hand a lot quicker than you might think. So sometimes it's generally best just not to go into lobby until you're fully prepared to go in there and that you feel safe about doing it. So now we're going to talk about the 4 doors that you can push into last with, and their relative advantages and disadvantages. For this map, it's not like Badlands Last, where going top left is the general preferred method that every team is going to do at some point during a match, at least in North America. On this map, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. They could go a whole match and never do the same push twice, as far as which door is being used for the Uber to come out of. So you need to be ready for anything in that regard, and if you're defending, and if you're attacking, well, I'm going to go over sort of the risks and advantages of each door in general. So then we're going to talk about each doorway individually. However, I group together the extreme left and right doors because they They offer the same set of advantages and disadvantages. So we'll talk about the advantages first. The left and right door are really handy to push through for a couple reasons. A, they don't have any good sniper angles from the enemy spawn, so that's a safety measure. B, they're generally not sticky trapped, although you should still check. C, right side door will generally have a defender, the left generally might not, or at least not a heavy defender, and definitely not a buffed one. And D, it gives you really solid angles on basically every sentry gun position. So you get a pretty good set of advantages out of that, and it also lets you sort of cut the size of last in half. So if you push in the right or left side, you're going to end up generally pushing their entire team onto the other side of the map, or you'll kill whoever's there. And that cuts down the amount of area that you're going to have to cover, which is really nice. The major drawback of these doorways, though, is that in the case of the left doorway, there's the open main doorway, and in the right doorway, there's a shutter door there directly to its left, and those are excellent flank routes for anybody that would want to attack you. So what often happens is that if you have a bad Uber and you go in from the left or right and you need to back your medic up or your whole combo up, and they go back through the left or the right door, they will get flanked and your medic will die. So you need to be really super careful and mindful of that. Particularly if you go for what is called the European Uber, where you just Uber in, pop their Uber, and try to get out. You don't want to back your combo up through the left or the right door because you're going to get flanked either through main or through the shutter and killed. So that's a definite major problem with the left and right door, as far as considering whether or not you want to push out of them. So now we're going to talk about the shutter door. The shutter door is generally the most stickied up door, so you need to be mindful of that, because there's going to be stickies right there on the door in most cases. So I've had plenty of Ubers in scrims, and I think even in matches, where you just open the door and you're immediately dead in a sticky trap that's like 8 stickies or so, and your pocket's clear at the back end of the map. So that's a definite major problem with shutter door, and you're in full view of the enemy team once you open it, and basically every sniper position that's any good, if they do choose to run a sniper against you, can see the shutter door. So in general, as soon as you open the shutter door, or even before you open the shutter door, you're generally going to have to pop your Uber. So that's something to bear in mind, that if you're in a situation where the amount of Uber you have is really vital to you, you're probably not going to want to use the shutter door. On the bright side, it's generally pretty difficult to flank you when you push shutter door, which is why it's a popular option despite all of its problems, because you can get your medic out through shutter rather easily, unless they flank you way ahead of time, and then that's somebody else's fault if your medic dies in that situation. The other problem with the shutter door is that it doesn't have a very good view on the sentry positioning if they have run an NG. So every time you go to push through shutter, if you're going to use it, you need to make absolutely certain that there is not an NG in play, because you're going to have a really difficult time taking down any gun they might have if you push in that way. So be sure there isn't one to deal with. Otherwise, you probably want to pick a different door. And now main. Main is nice because you can kind of peek out of it, and you can also see the sticky trap on the shutter door. The main problem is that while you round that metal thingy there, that little metal L-shaped wall, you don't really see exactly what you're pushing into, so again, sentry guns may pose a problem to you if there is one in play. However, you're not open to any sniper angles until you turn the corner. The biggest problem with that doorway is that while you clear the stickies off of the shutter door, if they're there, or on top of that doorway itself, you're really susceptible to being flanked from the left side, so the left door, it's really easy for a roamer or a scout to just wander into that doorway and shoot your medic in the back while you're trying to take your time and clear the stickies out of the way. So that's your major overarching concern if you're going to try to push out of main, is that nothing come through the left side, flank you, and force you to pop before you get into the position you want to be in to have a good Uber. So we're going to talk about an idea that I go over in every last push video, which is advantage and equal or disadvantage. If you have advantage in Uber or a massive player advantage, you should Uber in or simply push if it's a huge player advantage through multiple people through the same doorway. So left, right, main, shutter, a lot of people should be coming in. The ideal number is 4, so 3 combat classes and the medic. And I like to think of there as being 3 basic packages to that, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages. So it would be 2 scouts, the demo, the medic, 2 soldiers, the demo, the medic, or a scout, a soldier, demo, medic. Generally on this map, 2 soldiers, demo, medic is your best bet, because they're going to be pretty far away from you, in that most teams like to hide behind the wall, behind the point. So you need to cover that distance really quickly, and the easiest way to do that is to bring 2 soldiers in on the Uber, and have your demo kind of tag along, and get Ubered if he really, really needs it. The scout Uber thing doesn't work out as well sometimes, because you can get surprised by a sentry gun, and then you're basically hosed. And also, you're going to have to flash the scouts a lot as you run across the bridge or run over to wherever their team is holding, although it can still work unless you get surprised by a sentry gun. And then the scout soldier demo, that works pretty well and is a good utility option if you find that the other options don't work out particularly well, and that's sort of the go-to arrangement. If you're pushing without Uber, then any of those packages plus whoever's available would be great. Just make sure they're not all walking through the doorway at the exact same moment, because you can't Uber all of them to protect them from any hidden sticky traps or the errant lucky pipe or whatever. If you don't have advantage or the situation is equal, you've got 2 options to pick from. One is suicide for an off class of some type, which I'll talk about later in more depth. Or execute a Euro-style Uber, and that's not necessarily always done in Europe. It's just what it's called here in North America where I play, where you're just going to Uber in the pocket soldier and the medic, try to get them to pop their Uber, and then escape, and hope that they chase you and that you get kills as they're chasing you. That can work on this map, although I would strongly advise against using the left or the right doorway unless you have a lot of your team at either main if you go left or shutter door if you go right, to block any flanks that may come to try to kill your combo from behind as they re-enter. But mainly the biggest thing for this map while you're pushing is that you try to take control of either the right side of the map or the left side of the map, and then get behind that metal wall and flush all of them out onto the point. Then you can have a great deal of success as long as you achieve that, and any of their respawners are going to be sandwiched sort of between you and spawn, and won't be able to get out and help the rest of their team. Whereas if you leave that area behind the point free, then they're just going to be constantly crits healing people that spawn, and it's going to be really hard to take the point. Part of the reason I didn't include any real video into this is because suicides, which you can often have pretty good tailor-made plays for, are really hard on this map. Because generally they're going to have someone rather close to every doorway that's going to intercept you when you go into suicide at every door, so you can't like sneak in a scout as your roamer bombs very effectively without going 2 down. And generally the medic is going to be hiding behind the point, behind the middle wall, so it's really, really hard to get in on him regardless of what you are. So you're going to have to run an off class in most cases, and if you suicide more than one person, they're guaranteed to die, probably without forcing a pop. So assuming that they've got all 6 players alive, it's going to be really hard for you to get in, and you're just going to end up going 2 down and that's kind of risky on this map. But now I'm going to talk about sort of what every off class would do. Again, I would normally show video for this, but it's essentially the same on every map as to what is actually done. So if you feel like you need a video example, just go check out one of my other 5 CP last pushing videos, and that'll have an explanation as well as a video. But here I'm just going to do explanations so as to prevent redundancy. So let's say you run a suicide because Ubers are even and there's no player advantage to be had. Again, I should forewarn you, I'm going to say this in every segment. Suiciding into people is really dangerous because the probability of success is very low. So it's either going to be your roamer or a scout that's switching to heavy. So, as heavy, make sure your medic knows what door you're planning on coming in from, and that it's pretty close to the door that the med pushed in from, and that he or she will meet you as soon as your team's Uber is over, or nearly over. Ideally, they'll tell you when to come in, based on the situation, and then you'll pop out of the doorway, get your 450 in like 2 seconds because of crits heals, and then you're just going to win, because the bullets come out of your eyes, and you have 450 health and don't have to reload. Also, the biggest thing as heavy is that you don't push in from a door that's too far away from the medic, that it's not known ahead of time what doorway you're going to come out of, and that the medic must absolutely go to you. They must heal you at the start and stay with you pretty much the rest of the last push. That has to happen or you're wasting your time. Also, do not peek doorways, do not go in too early, don't try to be the first guy in. Heavy is not good at that, and you're wasting your time if you try to do that. Sniper's a really popular option as well for an off class. So you're either going to snipe from the left or the right, fully charge a body shot before you show yourself, and then slowly peek around the corner and hope you kill the medic demo or, if applicable, the heavy. Headshots are nice, but you don't really need to go for them. You're just trying to kill any random person you can find. The left and the right are the easiest to snipe from. You can also charge up a body shot while staring at the shutter door, and then you have a buffed buddy open the shutter door for a second or two and hope you can kill the medic and that nobody dies on your team while you do that, i.e. from the sticky trap that's inevitably at shutter door. That's a really effective sniper tactic because a lot of medics won't be hiding behind the metal thing completely, so you'll have a pretty good shot at him for 1 or 2 seconds, and if you're fully charged when the door opens, you'll be able to body shot him pretty effectively. The main thing I should forewarn you about with sniper is that you should never, ever, never, ever go sniper when you have Uber advantage. So if you know you're going to push as soon as you get Uber, or especially if you're running crits, do not go sniper. It will be very hard for you to succeed unless you get incredibly lucky. And that's kind of a silly thing to base your game plan off of if your intention is to win. So don't do that. If you know you're going to push when you get Uber and you have time, going heavy, that never hurts. But going sniper will definitely hurt if you have advantage or are running crits. And then lastly, we have Spy. Spy's pretty difficult to work with on this unless you have Cloak and Dagger. So if you're in Europe and where there is no Cloak and Dagger, Spy is really tough on this map because there aren't a lot of good decloak positions where you're either not going to be seen straight away or where you're not going to be heard when you decloak. There just aren't that many good spots. Basically, the only decloak spots are back by the spawn doors, clear in the back, and you hope that no one hears you. Ideally, when you say you're gonna uncloak, your team should make a lot of noise, as much noise as possible. Spam rockets all over the place, a bunch of stickies, anything that'll make some noise to distract people so they won't hear that shushing noise that happens when you decloak. You can also try behind the boxes or the crates on the left side or down near the point, and then sort of just wander up and hope nobody's paying attention. But like I said, Spy's pretty tough here, And again, never ever go spy when you have advantage or are running crits. It's just not going to be helpful. So spy can be a nice option for this because essentially you're running a suicide again with the specific goal of getting their medic. So even if it doesn't work, which it probably won't, it's really hard to get working here because there just aren't any really great hiding spots where you're not going to be seen or heard right away. It doesn't really punish your team, and you can just go heavy or sniper the next time around. So spy is tough, but it's the last viable option. NG Pyro, they don't really have a place here on offense. It's too much. You can't do the Enigma NG play because lobby is too twisty and turny, so there's no place for your gun to really go that'll be effective at stopping a push out. And Pyro is no good because they stand so far away you can't corral them effectively with your air blast. And that's my rough guide to pushing Metalworks last. I figured it'd be easier just to talk about some general ideas, especially since the metagame hasn't really developed on this map to a point where there's like a standard last push, like Badlands, go top left, so on and so forth. We're not really there yet with it, so I just wanted to present some general ideas and then give you some general rules about pushing lasts in case you haven't seen my videos before. If you're confused at all about what I said about sniper or heavy, then I've got examples of how to do those things on other maps, and you do essentially the same thing on Metalworks. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I mainly just wanted to talk about the 4 doors, how to deal with them, things to look out for when you push in, and then talk a little bit about advantage and disadvantage and how you're going to manage that when you push a last, in case you haven't seen my other videos about pushing last. So I hope you found this to be enjoyable and helpful for your games on Metalworks, and until next time.